Rekord war 3,5 Stunden.
So, guten Morgen! Guten Morgen und herzlich willkommen an der Universität Swansea. Croeso I chi gyd I Phrifysgol Abertawe. Diolch yn fawr am ymuno â ni heddiw, rai yn y sydd yma ac rai ar y line. A wonderful, heartfelt welcome to Swansea University. Thank you so much for being here today. Those of you that are in the lecture theatre with us here, and also people joining us online. My name is Christiane Günther. I'm a German lecturer at Swansea University, and I'm super delighted, and we're going to take my seat, to have this amazing panel with us today. So how are we going to do it? Each member will introduce themselves, and would you please state also your favorite German word? Then I'm going to ask some questions. And then at the end, we have a Q&A session, and my wonderful colleagues, Ariane and Tanya from MLTI, Modern Languages, Translation and Interpreting, Swansea, will have microphones, and they will come around and will ask you, or you have the opportunity then to ask your questions. So, dear panel, we start on this side. Would you please introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Bärbel Hermannsspahn. I'm a linguist by background. I work as a translator and interpreter. And I've done so for a long time. I mainly work in the medical field and mainly from English into German. I'm also the Honorary Consul for Germany in Birmingham and the West Midlands, and that means I'm sort of an official representative of the country in the West Midlands and for Germans living in the region. And I use my languages in both contexts. My favorite word is kuddelmuddel, and that means literally a mess, you know, something is in a mess.
Can we all say kuddelmuddel? Kuddelmuddel. Perfekt. Marlies, bitte.
Mein Name ist Marlies Höcherl. Ich bin auch Deutsch und ich bin Solicitor, also Anwältin. Sorry, I should do this in English, shouldn't I? My name is Marlies Höcherl. I'm also German and I'm a lawyer in Cardiff. I work for a commercial law firm called Capital Law. And I use my German quite a lot because I have German clients or I have transactions with Germany. So being able to speak German is very, very handy. Like Bärbel, I'm also an honorary consul. I'm based in Cardiff, and like her, I represent Germany in the southern part of Wales. My favorite word is Eisenbahnscheinbewegung, which is one of those wonderful long words. And what it actually means is the feeling you have when you sit in a train and you look out of the window, and your train actually stands on standstill, and you think it actually moves, but that's because the train next to your train is moving. So in English, I need this massively long sentence, but in German, we have a word for it.
Yeah, my name is Ute Keller-Jenkins. I'm from an educational background. I originally came from Stuttgart in the south of Germany. Graduated from Mannheim University, Mannheim, who's twinned with Swansea. You probably know that. And I graduated in German studies, business studies, and educational science. For my year abroad, I came to Swansea for what I thought was my year abroad. Turned out a bit longer than that because I fell in love with this lovely, ugly town and had a great privilege to work for Swansea University for close to 30 years, accompanying students at all levels, but mainly teaching business language and taking them through the stages of career planning, of marketing. I remember wonderful occasions when my students had to give a marketing plan to introduce a German product to the British market. You can imagine that was really exciting. In the past 4 years, I've gone freelance, and I now work with Welsh clients and also with international clients anywhere in the world. I work with professionals who need the language for their workplace. I work with academics who need it for their research. And also, I've been working with an A-level student who required a little bit more assistance for her application because she wanted to study at university. And I'm now really happy and delighted to say that she's reading German at Oxford in her second year. Of course, you can study German in Swansea the same way, and it probably is, equally good. Yeah, I have worked and lived in Wales for longer than I did in Germany, and Wales is my second Heimat, which also brings me to my favorite word, which is Fernweh, which is a kind of Wanderlust, which you may know. It's a longing to leave your nest and to explore places further afield. That's why I'm here today.
Thank you very much. To my right.
Hello, my name is Adam. I am a former student of Swansea University where I studied translation and interpreting. It's also where I started learning German as a beginner. And so now I'm sort of at that point where I'm starting to look at next steps, so this big event is really useful for me too. And my favorite word in German has to be Morgenmuffel, which is the word to describe someone who doesn't really like the mornings.
Thank you very much.
So, hello everyone, my name is Justine Vonpierre. I originally come from France, from Strasbourg, town at the border with Germany, with Baden-Württemberg, if anyone knows. My background, I studied international relations and languages at university in Bavaria, in Regensburg, and in Scotland, in Edinburgh. And I just started my first job 7 months ago. I work as a project manager for the Goethe-Institut in London. And so I organize cultural and linguistic projects to motivate students like you to learn languages and German in particular. So that's very funny because I have to acknowledge my favorite German word was Fernweh, so now I'm going to pick another one. So it was Fernseh because it's also difficult to translate into English. So I'll pick Nachteule, which is also related to your word because it's literally a night owl, which means someone who likes to stay awake late.
Thank you very much. And how about a little applause for the introduction? So the first question is, what motivated you to learn languages and how has it shaped your professional goals and career path? Okay, we're going to start with Marlies.
With me, yeah. This is not going to be a linear path, but it's sort of like a snake. So when I was at school, I wasn't all that great in English, actually. I did English, Latin, and French, and I loved Latin and French much more than English. I decided I want to become an archaeologist. And in order to study classical archaeology, you also had to do Greek. So I had to do a crash course in ancient Greek before I started my degree proper. And I learned ancient Greek A-level standard in about 9 months. And then I also found that a lot of the literature that you needed to read in order to do your assignments for archaeology was either in Italian or in Greek, modern Greek. So I learned a bit of Italian and modern Greek as well. And I was involved at the time with a group helping Turkish guest workers in Germany. There were a lot of people from Turkey coming in to work there. And their wives quite often were at home and didn't work, and they didn't really integrate well with society because of language problems. So we had a group of us, we taught them German, and so they taught me a little bit of Turkish, so I learned a little bit of Turkish. I won't bore you with the details, but I ended up being in the UK and doing law and becoming actually a lawyer here. And because I spoke a lot of languages, or at least tried to, my boss at the time said, you know what, we are a member of an international network. Why don't you take over this and make it your baby, make what you want to do with it. So I got very much involved in this international legal network and met people from all over the world, went to fantastic conferences. I've been to all 5 continents with it. I've had some superb experiences, stayed in some amazing hotels, and also did a lot of work all over the world. Because of that, I got to know a lot of people within Cardiff or within Wales who work internationally in the Welsh government and so on. And then I met the Swiss Honorary Consul who asked me if I could help her do events for business people, because she was sort of somebody who wasn't that well acquainted with the business world. And then after a while, she had to retire, and she said, well, you know, do you want to do this? And I thought, well, why not? So I became the Swiss Honorary Consul, and a couple of years after that, the then German Honorary Consul said she wanted to retire, and would I be interested in that? And so these things always happen, but being able to speak languages was always a key element in having these opportunities. So there were quite often things I haven't actively sought that came my way, but they came my way because of my ability to speak languages.
So Justine, thank you very much, Marlies. Justine and Adam, what motivated you to learn the languages that you can speak now?
Should I go?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say the main motivation comes from being able to connect with people and to get to know other cultures, because learning a language is not only about speaking verbally something else, it's also about getting to know a culture, different habits, different food, different whatever. And this is always great to be able to connect with people, whereas it's in the work, but also, for example, if you're just in the tube in London and you hear another language that you know, you might start to speak with this person, even though you would have never spoken to this person. And coming from a cross-border region with German, it always made sense for me to learn German, because it also shows that you're curious, that you're interested in others, and I think it's very important nowadays to stay connected in that way with as many people as possible. Yeah. These are my main. I think also, if I can add, knowing languages feels also like a superpower, like a sixth sense, and I think it's very pleasant to be able to speak languages.
Thank you very much, Adam.
So I think for me, I would have started learning languages at the same age most of you are, which was maybe, well, for me it was year 7, I started learning French. And that was really something new for me, something interesting. I had Welsh lessons in school before that, but not to the point where I could use it freely, whereas I can use maybe French and German freely today. And that's actually something I'm working on now, is I'm going to start learning Welsh as a beginner, because I am Welsh and I think I should be able to, you know, sort of connect to my country in that way. And then one day a speaker came to my school and gave a similar talk now, and talked about the need for people who can speak second languages in business. And at that point, like before that point, I hadn't really considered that it would be such a valuable or unique skill, especially in the UK. So now, not only was it something that I really enjoyed, that I did just for pleasure, but it was also something now that I would increase my employability, and that I could use in a job in the future. And so now something I'm also looking into is continuing to study abroad, because it allowed me to study abroad maybe 2 years ago now. So now I'm looking into studying abroad, or maybe working and living abroad, and having those languages gives me the freedom to do that.
Amazing. Same question to you,
Yes,
Bärbel.
okay. In contrast to Marlies, my path into languages was fairly linear, because I've always had a fascination with languages. I started learning English when I was 10, then French, 2 years later, and then Latin, and I hated Latin. I absolutely hated Latin with a vengeance. But it served me incredibly well, because my French and my Spanish have been based on Latin, and in the medical field that I now work in, doing translation work, obviously most of the medical terms are based on Latin. So it's actually served me incredibly well, even though, you know, I don't really want to think back about it. But it's an important thing. I love languages. It's a fascinating thing to have. I love being able to bring two parties together, whether that's, you know, somebody who doesn't speak it and needs to read something up, being able to do the translation work, or if it's in the booth doing some interpreting for people. I feel I can build bridges, I can connect people, and I think that's an amazing skill to have. And it's not just about having a job prospect within the languages whether you do German or French or whatever, thinking about your job prospects within that, it's a great joy to do a language and to be able to communicate in that language. When I started, I never ever thought for 1 minute that I would be sitting here doing this and being able to communicate freely, bilingually, without thinking it at all. You know, it comes natural after a while, and it's an amazing skill to have, to be able to communicate in 1, 2, and some of you probably in several languages more. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, Ute.
Yeah, well, my fascination with languages started really early because I grew up in a more or less international family, with my mother coming from Hungary and my father from the former Yugoslavia, and I was always really fascinated listening to my mother engaging in conversations with our relatives, and I was listening to that and I thought, what are they saying? Because my mother never taught the language to me, which I thought was a great shame. But the seed was sown, it was there, and when I got into secondary school, I loved Latin. And it doesn't matter whether it's Latin or any other language, you learn a foreign language, and with that, I think for the first time you may even start thinking about your own language. So through learning Latin, English, French, whatever it is, Welsh, you might compare how do we say something in one language and how do we say it in my own language. And then I thought, isn't that fascinating? Wouldn't that be a fantastic job to do later? To give your passion for languages, pass that on to other people and enable them to do things that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to do. Yeah. And of course, now I'm a child of the sort of 60s, but I was your age in the 1980s, that's a while ago. And that was interesting because there was a big thing coming from America, and that was called MTV. Yeah, some of you may remember that. That was the first American channel that would allow us to watch music videos and television, American. It's probably difficult to understand for you these days because you've got internet, you've got everything on in your mobile phone. For us, it was a revelation being able to to listen to music videos to your heart's content and not being restricted to half an hour to the listening to the equivalent what might have been in this country the top of the pops. Yeah, so we didn't need more motivation than that, really to delve into English so that we could be part of that world. That was a big thing. But yeah, I'm hoping to be able to do the same here in Britain. And I've seen more than 30 generations of students who I think have enjoyed learning German, even the subjunctive.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the next question. Can you share an example of how your language skills have enhanced your communication or teamwork abilities? And Marlies and Justine, you already mentioned that you're working in international teams. Would you like to take that question?
Yes, sure. So when you think of communication, you probably think of verbal communication, but in fact, when you learn a language, you also get to know codes and behaviors and that are linked to the culture. So for example, if I can give you a concrete example, I did an internship in a French and German TV channel where most of the people could speak both languages, but sadly some couldn't, so they had to communicate, the French and German colleagues, together in English. And talking the same language, they didn't mean the same thing because they had different codes. So for example, related to the conception of time, we were facing a misunderstanding because the French colleagues would said, oh, we'll deliver this TV program to you in 2 weeks, and the German colleagues took it very straight and very directly. They said, okay, it will be delivered in 2 weeks, and in fact it wasn't because of, it's not, I don't want to say that it's a cliche, it's not a cliche, it's about how culture, the work culture shapes you, and in France, it's quite normal if you say, oh, in 2 weeks I'll deliver you this program, that it's a bit later and you don't even give a notice. But for the German people, this is not normal. If you say in 2 weeks, then it has to arrive in 2 weeks, or you have to apologize for that. So these are culture shocks that are part of communication. And even though they were both talking English to each other, they didn't, I guess the French people didn't know about the German codes and work culture. So this is something, when you learn a language, you learn also to different codes, different behaviors. You learn how to be aware of these differences, and then you are able to work with different nationalities, which is of course beautiful. So this is a challenge I faced. And
what a wonderful example of intercultural communication. Definitely, Marlies.
Yeah, actually mine is a very, very similar example. So I do transactional work, which means sort of like buying and selling companies and that kind of thing. And so I quite often speak to lawyers in Germany and their clients, and we have sometimes conference calls or email correspondence. And as I'm sure you're all aware, everybody in Germany speaks English, right? Well, yeah, not necessarily. So quite often I get emails from Germany, from the lawyers or their clients, and if I just pass them on to my clients, they would immediately ring me and say, what on earth is happening? This is so arrogant, this is terrible, and you know, they feel insulted by the tone of voice. But what they don't actually understand is that the German people just translate directly into English. German is a lot more based on using nouns than verbs. So the English language is constantly flowing. There's sort of like always some kind of momentum going, whereas the German language is sort of like much more matter of fact, very factual. And if you translate that indirectly, it comes across as quite aggressive, sometimes, you know, nearly a bit insulting. And also, as you said, different culture codes. You know, we don't sort of like say things, in German we would say durch die Blume sagen. We don't sort of like use flowery language. We actually say what we mean. I always say it cuts out all the rubbish, you know where you are. But of course, that's not readily understood in the English business community or the English-speaking business community. So I do find myself quite often translating English into English and vice versa, just to make sure that people actually all understand what the other party is saying.
Thank you very much. So when it comes to language learning, Adam, what strategies or resources, particularly as a language student, have you found most effective in learning languages?
I think for me, beyond, when I came to Swansea University, something I started doing beyond going to my lessons, doing my homework.
And that is very important, to always go to your lectures and your lessons,
yes.
right?
Yeah, I went to every one of them. Beyond that, something I tried to do was to incorporate the language I was learning into my everyday life as much as possible. So something I did to do that was I thought of hobbies that I have, interests that I have, skills I'm trying to learn, and I try to do that in the language. So for example, for me, I like playing video games, so I would go into the settings of the game or the console or your phone, change the language and then carry on playing. Or if you like watching movies, watch it with the German dubbing or the French dubbing, whatever. And that way you get to do something you enjoy while still exposing yourself to the language, and you learn it without even realizing you're learning it, and then one day you realize how far you've come just by doing that. Or if it's maybe an interest you have, if you're interested in history and you type in on YouTube history videos in German, or if it's a skill you're trying to learn, like how to draw in pencil in German, tutorial German, then try and watch those, and it would be a good sort of measure of how much you understand the language. So yeah, incorporate it into your life as much as you can is one of the ways I did it. And by doing that, you find the channels or the social media accounts that do content that you like, and then you can follow them, and it just sort of appears more and more in your life.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you very much for those tips. Bärbel, what career opportunities are available for students proficient in German?
Well, I'd say there are loads and loads of opportunities. I think if you are able to study German in Germany itself, or go and work there, or even spend a year abroad, I think that's an amazing opportunity, and I think you will have doubled your chances of getting a job, because you've opened up a huge job market, with Germany being 80 million people, so it's a huge country. You've got obviously job opportunities in this country too, but I think you will have doubled your your opportunities, and I think that's an amazing thing to have. And also, I just wanted to add to something earlier on. Being in the country is the absolute best thing you can do to learn a language. So immerse yourself, jump into the deep end, and literally just get to grips with the language. You will see your language skills shoot through the roof. It's really the best thing you can possibly do to learn any language. It's great fun to do it. It might be daunting to start off with, but I think it's an amazing opportunity. When I came to this country, I had done English at school for absolutely donkey's years. At uni, I got to Macclesfield near Manchester, and I couldn't understand a word of what they were saying. And it was such a shock, but even after a year in Macclesfield, I was fluent in that, and it was the most amazing experience I've had.
So we were fluent in Macclesfield.
You're right.
Ute, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, well, I see those students who have a proficiency in German, I see them as bridge builders between nations and between cultures. That's what I'd like to call my students. They're bridge builders. And I would say, despite of Brexit, there are strong links with Europe. And British companies require students who can sensibly and meaningfully converse with clients and business partners abroad, but also with people who live here who are from abroad. And somebody who's just learned a language will not be able to do that. We heard about the importance of intercultural awareness, and that there are different Englishes about that need translation sometimes. And I think this is what you get when you go abroad and spend some time there. And maybe just to highlight, give you some examples of my students. It doesn't have to be teaching and interpreting. There's a lot more you can do, actually. Haley, for example, she did French and German, and she started her career out in London. She worked for Burberry, and she manned the German desk. Cara, from Abertawe, I believe, came to Swansea, studied here, and then she's now working in the international office at Birmingham University, helping to sort out exchanges. If you go across the channel, we've got Kobe, who's originally from Bristol, and he is doing a similar role as Cara does in Birmingham. He's working for the University of Bochum in the international office, looking after exchange students there. And if you really want to take it to an extreme, I got an example of a student from Aslevera. And Thomas, he is, he did German with us, but then he learned Spanish bit by bit as well during his university career. He then went to Alicante, first to Madrid to teach English in Madrid. Then he went to Alicante to work in a British international school, teaching German and PE. I think he was a passionate footballer as well. We had football here earlier, so it's also linking people up. And then he went to Dubai, teaching German and having an amazing experience, again with a British international school. And I'm pleased to say that he's now head of languages in a British international school in Alicante, still teaching German and still sort of transmitting this amazing passion he has for the German language. It all started in Aslevera and then in Swansea. So you can see how far you can spread your wings. Yeah, so the world is yours.
So we have about 12 minutes left, and I would like to keep kind of 10 minutes for Q&As, if that's okay. So this requires a very, very short answer. So what advice would you give to students who are learning German? We start with you, Justine. Just 10 seconds.
Stay curious and grab opportunities, such as these today. You're all here. Grab these little opportunities. If you can do an exchange abroad, do it. Don't ask yourself. If you go to university and you can do an exchange, go. And if you have someone coming into your classroom that speaks another language, talk about it with them and exchange about it. That's it. And stay curious.
For me, it would have to be maybe consistency. Just practice a little bit every day. Do something in the language every day. And it will slowly build up into something big.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Well, I would say learning a language is always more than grammar. So engage with other people, like you said. But also, I would say, don't be afraid of grammar or anything like that. Grammar is a vehicle, that's your toolkit that you need to produce your own language. Be never afraid of grammar. Develop a very positive attitude towards. This is what enables you to come up with your own phrases. Don't just learn stuff off by heart. That takes you to a certain stage, but having the toolkit yourself, that takes you further.
Thank you very much.
Speak, 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 and make mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's the only way to learn it.
Yeah. And don't listen to anybody saying that German is such a difficult language to learn. I think it's a very logical, very structured language, which in my experience is easier than English, because English has got so many anomalies and exceptions. So German is comparatively easy.
Well, thank you very much for being so attentive. And a big thank you and großes Danke an das Panel. It's not over yet, because it's your turn now to ask some questions. So Tanya and Ariana here, so please raise your hand. They will come around with a microphone, and you can ask your question. Who would like to ask the first question? I'm sure there are lots of questions around.
Oh, there's one.
Tanya's running up.
Lady in the green, what was harder for you to learn, English or Spanish?
Excellent question.
That's a good question. I don't actually know the answer to that, to be honest. I think it's probably English, because there are, even to this day, I encounter the odd word where I haven't got a clue how to pronounce it, because it could be either way. So probably English.
Thank you very much.
Next question. Yeah.
If you had one language to speak, what would it be?
If one other language you would like to learn, what would it be?
If you had to pick only one language to speak.
Only language to speak. Which language would that be? Justine.
I'm desperately trying to learn Arabic, so if I could speak it, that would be amazing. So I would pick Arabic, because there's so many people speaking Arabic in so many countries, so that would be great.
Thank you very much. A question from that. Oh, okay, we have questions in the front. Ariane? Thank you. Merci.
If you could be fluent in one language, what would it be?
Okay, there was a similar question to Justine. Maybe, Adam, would you like to take this?
Probably German, that would speed things up.
Bonus point for you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Next question.
Did you make new friends while learning German?
If I can answer that for my son, he has made friends in all corners of the world. He was very reluctant when he was little to learn German, but he got there in the end. When he was 14, he turned around to me and he said, "Thank you for forcing me to learn it." And he is now living and working in Germany. He went for his year abroad to Bavaria, to Regensburg, and that made the difference. When he went to Regensburg, this is where he met all these people all over the world. He's now going to visit friends in Portugal, in Mexico. He met amazing people from Finland. This is how you make friends. Definitely, yeah.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah.
I think it's a very good question. I think it's not just about your language, it's that you go to a different country. You've already shown you're curious, you're adventurous, you flower and you come out of your shell, essentially, if you're going to a new country, because you've got to face different challenges, there are problems, you don't understand some of it, but you overcome it bit by bit, and by doing so, you are making a lot of progress, your self-confidence goes sky high, and you are making a lot of friends in the process as well.
There's a question in the front. Okay, yeah.
What was your favourite language to learn?
What's a favorite language to learn? Ute, would you like to answer that?
Well, I already talked about Latin, forget about that for the time being. What I always said, what I want to do once in my life is learning Spanish. I had to wait until now, and I've been learning Spanish for 1 year, just with Duolingo, well, maybe not. I've discovered Bärbel, but what I now want to do, I've got to know somebody who is from, I think, Chile, and I want to do a Sprachtandem with that person to actually experience that language for real. So Spanish it is for me.
Yeah. You have quite a mixture, no? Arabic, obviously very German, beautiful.
Ancient Greek.
Ancient
For me,
Greek.
Ancient Greek is the most beautiful language there ever was, and that gives you such a grounding in grammar that any other grammar afterwards is easy.
Thank you very much. Question?
This question doesn't really matter who answers it, but were there any links that you noticed between your first and second language that made it easier to translate? And also, if you speak a third language, since you already speak two, is it easier to learn a third?
Adam, you want to pick that one?
Yeah, I think you might look at German and think that was nothing like English, but as you learn, you start to see actually that word we use in English comes from German, or the word we use in German comes from English, and they're very similar. Sometimes they're not similar at all. But as for the second part of the question, I would say it was easier for me to learn German a lot quicker than I learned French, for example, because I'd already had sort of the experience of learning new grammar rules, and something that might be quite difficult is you get grammatical gender, so that doesn't really sort of surprise you anymore. So it definitely is a lot easier. I think your brain sort of works out how to navigate these new rules, and some languages share rules, so if you can learn one, it happens in the other. Yeah.
Perfect. Then we have time for 2 more questions. Yeah?
Are there any apps or websites you use that have helped you learn German or other languages?
Justine, you want to?
One website. I would recommend you to watch the news. If you're interested in the news, I would recommend you, if you have any streaming platform, to just watch the films in German. As a dictionary, can I name a dictionary? I use Leo, Leo. Yeah.
Maybe we can add as a German language teacher, Deutsche Welle is very good. Obviously, all the materials provided by the Goethe-Institut as well. Has anybody has one more little suggestion on learning resources?
I think you can use Duolingo, but be aware that Duolingo always makes you think you're much better than you are, and it does not teach you to speak. So it's quite good just to learn vocabulary, but that's about it.
Absolutely, the speaking, the output is much more important. We have a teacher question, and then we're going to have one more question, and then unfortunately... Yeah, okay, let's quickly.
From an employer perspective, is it right in thinking that if you have a CV with a qualification in a language, be that GCSE, be that A-level, A degree, that you are more desirable when being appointed for a job? The rumour is out there, but can you confirm that's true? And likewise, is it possibly also the case in terms of your earnings, that you can earn more with that qualification compared to somebody else who doesn't have a language GCSE or A-level degree level?
Yeah, I can say that from my experience, certainly if somebody has a language as well as all the other skills that are required, that gives them an edge. And they will probably also progress quicker through their career because there are more opportunities. There are also statistics that show that if you have languages, that your earning power does go up quite considerably, so definitely. And I would also say that you can use languages in more or less any job or every job because it opens your world. You can be a dentist and have a language, and then you can all of a sudden practice as a dentist in Spain, or you can be a mechanic and work in Italy, or, the world becomes your oyster. You can do whatever. But it definitely helps with employability and also with earning.
What would you recommend more, doing the European framework test, so getting a B2 or a C1, or doing German A-level?
I think it depends what you want to do with your language. I mean, there is no such thing as perfect fluency anyway. Even as German people, we're not 100% fluent. So it really depends what you want to use it for certain jobs. For example, if you want to do law and German, then you have to have a fairly high standard of German in order to advise, so that needs to be degree level. But, you know, for other jobs, you may just have to have the ability to converse a little bit in a specific field. So, yeah, it's horses for courses.
If I may add, obviously the German A-level will prepare you really well for the B2 certificate. So it kind of goes hand in hand, and it might be a good motivation anyway to continue studying German, because sometimes you're sidetracked by other things and you forget, actually I have to study something. So doing a subject in school kind of encourages you, motivates you to stick to it. A B2 C1 certificate is quite high in level, so you need it in order to study, in order to do high professional jobs. So definitely also stick. Maybe see the A-level as a step one, GCSE obviously, A-level, and then go and study for a certificate such as the B2 or the C1. One more, very last question.
If I were to choose German, where would be the best place to learn it? Like A-levels or somewhere?
Can you repeat the question, please?
If I were to take German A-level for GCSE and go to university, where would be the best university to go to?
Welcome to Swansea. Obviously, make it always an informed choice. You know, it's not what university is the best for you. Have a go, visit, go to open days, visit many, many different universities. You will feel it, which is the perfect place for you. I highly encourage you, don't only go to one because you think this is the perfect place. Visit as many as you can. I think once you are on campus, you know, I would like to study there. That is all what we have time for today. Vielen, vielen Dank.